pretty clearly was not a murder. With Bourgeois, they made up a lot of stuff. Bourgeois fits in the category of someone who might be framed.
I want to mention, I think this is a miscarriage of justice. And that day in December, I mark it on my calendar because I failed.
Of the 5 executions I witnessed, Bourgeois was the only one who maintained his innocence to the very end.
It's wrongful. How you doing?
Hello? We got about 10 seconds. If there's anything anybody wants to say before it hangs up. 5 seconds. 4. Dad?
The media made you believe that my father was a monster. But my father was not a monster. And my father would never hurt his children.
4 years ago from tomorrow, Alfred Bourgeois was executed and nobody was talking about it. It was a month later when I found out that actually he had a credible innocence claim. And nobody is talking about it.
Tonight I'm feeling mean, I'm feeling mean. Tonight I'm feeling mean, I'm feeling mean. Tonight I'm feeling mean, gonna make an ugly scene. Tonight I'm feeling mean, I'm feeling mean. Tonight I'm gonna pick myself a fight. If some deserving dirtbag a black eye, and if he swings at me, then I'll bust that sucker's knee. 'Cause tonight I'm feeling mean, I'm feeling mean. I'm feeling mean. I'm feeling mean. The meanest hunk of meat that anyone's ever seen. Get out of the way of the hurricane. There's a heavy price to pay. Tonight I'm feeling mean. I'm feeling mean. And tonight I'm gonna drink like that ain't done. Gonna act a fool and keep on till the dawn. Drink 15 pints of beer, then I'll roll right out of here. And tonight I'm gonna drink like that.
Whew. I look at these Facebook messages and the cyberbullying Bethany had to face, and 3 things come to mind. The pain and the agony that Bethany must have felt, having to read such hateful and cruel comments about her father. I can't blame people for believing what they read. This is something about the media. The media has a way of convincing people that whatever they read is true. And then it has to do with an innocent child being tortured. Of course, when you are Of course, when you're confronted with this type of information, it makes you hate Alfred Bourgeois. And of course, they attacked his daughter online and labeled him a monster because of what they believed he did. Which leads me to number 3. You can't believe everything you read. Our justice system isn't always just. Corruption occurs, and Alfred Bourgeois' case is a testament to that. Contrary to what you may have read online, Jakarin's autopsy showed absolutely no abuse. So, now what? Where do we go from here? There are a lot of cases in the United States about people being framed and falsely accused. You can think about George Steiny, who was 14 years old when he was executed for a crime he did not commit. A little bit further along in time, you've got the case of Carlos de Luna, an innocent person who was also accused of terrible things. And they later found out that he was completely innocent. I say all of this to say innocent people are being falsely convicted and accused. Innocent people are being falsely convicted and executed for crimes they do not commit, probably on a regular basis. Sometimes the most vicious and the sickest accusations are the ones that lead to false executions. Alfred Bourgeois' last words were, "I confess and repent to God all I have ever said and done against God's will. I ask for forgiveness for all those who planted and plotted evidence in my home and truck, for they know not what they did. In no form of fashion did I murder, rape, or sexually molest my daughter or anyone else in my whole entire life. I did not commit this crime. I love my kids with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength." God, I love you with all my heart, soul, mind, and strength. Doesn't sound like the words of a monster. The truth is clear. Alfred Bourgeois was not a monster, but an innocent man caught in the web of a deeply flawed system. If these accusations have been proven false, what does that say about the foundation of the entire case? The accusations, any accusations, have been proven false. What does it say about the foundation of the entire case? As we've shown in episodes 1 and 2, the claims of rape and blunt force trauma were fabrications, lies that tore a man's life apart and fueled a wrongful conviction. In this episode, we're revealing yet another falsehood, an alleged story of abuse that never happened. This is The People versus Alfred Bourgeois.
Bethany Bourgeois George is the daughter of Alfred Bourgeois, who was convicted of vicious crimes against his 2-year-old daughter, Jakarin. Bethany claims there is insurmountable evidence proving her father's innocence on all charges, and she has been fighting the last 4 years for exposure and justice.
I grew up with my mother and my father. My mother was my dominant home, and I would visit my father throughout the week for holidays and on the weekends. My father was the most wonderful man in the world. And one of the things that has always raised a red flag about this case is that not once in my entire life did my father ever so much as spank me.
My father wasn't the most faithful when it came to marriages, but the women who he were involved with and who he had children with, they were not allowed to whip or spank the kids, no matter how mischievous we were. It's just something that he did not believe in. He was very easy to talk to, very down to earth, and more than anything, he was very honest. When people are reading these media allegations, they're reading that this innocent child suffered abuse. The reports state that my sister had whip marks from extension cords. It stated 73 contusions. This is what they're reading. People are unaware that this is not a report that was from an autopsy. This is a report from a physician used by the prosecution that took a picture of an autopsy, took a picture of an autopsy, zoomed in on it, and distorted images. So this means that if Jacaren had 8 contusions from hypernatremia, which is common, if she had 8 contusions and it was zoomed in on, 1 contusion appeared as 9 because it was distorted. This is what these readers are being fed.
I'm looking at what Dr. Spitz said in there, and I'm just reading what he says. He says, enhancing the photographs introduces new dimensions, new colors, new uncertainties, and so far as the findings in the enhancements were not present at the autopsy table, right? And basically, he's saying that the enhancements are misleading, confusing, and exaggerate the findings and produce artifacts. And that's where 300 different wounds come from when you zoom in.
Interesting.
And that's the point he was trying to make, and
they didn't want to hear.
No one wants to hear that. They just completely discredit Dr. Spitz. This guy's almost 90 years old. He's been doing this a long time.
Yeah, Dr. Spitz.
That guy's famous, isn't he?
Yeah, famous.
O.J. Simpson. He's been investigating the MLK assassination of
JFK. He's been around for a long time.
Michael Jackson.
Yeah, so maybe they didn't want to hear it because they just didn't want to hear it. We can speculate on that, but the fact remains that this was an expert in the matter, and none of the experts on neurology were used.
story that they just
the
created.
bat story is crazy.
Oh my God.
They're basically saying it's the bat, not another natural cause.
They have a plan A and a plan B. First they're saying, oh, he hit her in the head with a bat. And then Alfred, that's what Robin says, he hits in the head with a bat. Then Alfredicia is the one who says the story about the head being banged in. Two different stories, of course. Mm-hmm. But with this bat, a bat was never found at the scene. So what the prosecution did is got Robin and Alfredicia to go to a store, get out a bat that they felt was similar, and use that in the trial. And that's not right.
That's the evidence they proffered.
They both talk about the bat, but they have two different stories on what they saw. Robin stated that when she walked in, my father was laying on the bed. Now, I tell you, I've been in this truck before, so I know the truck. Like, you can't get over with me on the truck. That truck had bunk beds. There was a bottom, and then there was a top. Robin states that my father was laying on the bottom bunk bed. Jacaren was sitting on her potty, and he was hitting her directly on the top of her head. That's impossible because there wouldn't be enough room to put your hand up and actually get impact to really hit a child because the other bed was on top of it. So that never happened. Alfredicia's testimony states that my father was again laying down in the bed when they entered, and Jacaren was standing, and my father was hitting her with a bat, which still sounds weird because now she's taller than him. Either way, it just doesn't make sense. And the bat was never found. And even the urine story, there's, they I don't know if you read the testimony. It stated that he he walked in, like, and then I think they added the part where, he forced her to drink it. He wasn't even in the truck. Neither was Robin. This was something that Alfredicia, and also this is what she told me. I saw him make her drink pee. Remember, so reading her testimony, she told me that he was in the truck and she saw him force her, Jacaren, to drink that urine. And then reading her testimony, I'm seeing the complete opposite. Like, he wasn't even in the truck. You were the one who went to him and got him out of the...
and also she, was drinking it voluntarily?
And when they presented it in court, the photo, I don't even remember them saying yellow. Like, there was a green substance. Urine isn't green.
Right.
Yeah,
that was very weird.
That was, it probably was the Hawaiian punch. It was a Hawaiian punch jug.
And
it was probably green Hawaiian punch. You making up a story.
But, you're trying to make this guy sound like the devil, And then, of course, I can think about all these other things the same as that, the biting. But,
sure.
And I don't even know how they were able to say that, considering the autopsy had no bite marks. It wasn't there.
Yeah,
where'd they get this from?
Dr. Spitz said the one mark that he saw, there was no DNA or anything as such to point out that it was a bite mark. It could have easily have just been a scratch, or they were active. They were out doing things. It could have been anything.
Yeah, it wasn't
as
a
child.
bite mark.
I also remember there's been a lot of stories that I've seen in the last couple of years about how from back in the day they used to really believe that there was a scientific method for evaluating bite marks and mashing bite marks to people's teeth and stuff like that. It's sort of been I think rejected at this point as being kind of made up. So I think that's also pretty interesting too to look at if they were yet relying on drunk science like that. From what I understand about the federal death penalty cases anyway is that they have this checklist of things they have to find for somebody to pursue the death penalty.
Yes.
I don't think just killing someone isn't enough.
No.
Yeah.
And so there's always an incentive for finding.
There need to be an incentive. They need build-up. So that's why you have the abuse and the made-up stories, like you're saying, to show build-up. It seems weird. Wait, you're biting, now you're bringing to a museum, now you're hitting, now you're killing her? Wait, now you're swimming and trying to have a good time? It sounds weird. What kind of father's doing something like this? This makes no sense. But they had to build up to that.
They have to do it, yeah.
They have to. And the biggest piece was the final piece was the rape. That was the seal the deal for the death penalty.
And the head being banged against the window. I want to talk about this potty thing because it has relevancy. They were saying on the testimony, like my stepmother's testimony, they repetitively say that my sister Jakaren was forced to sit on her potty. Now, I've interacted with Jakaren, and every single time that I was in her company, she was on that potty. She was on the potty, but it was not because my father forced her to. The potty also converted to a toddler chair, and she would sit. The potty was usually kept in front of the TV. She would sit with her hands like this on the potty and watch cartoons for hours, maybe 2 or 3 hours straight. And my father I remember he'd always say, she's 2. Aren't 2-year-olds supposed to be running around? This girl loves cartoons. So after a few hours, he'd have to get her up and say, go run, go play with your sister. For them to say that he forced her to sit on that chair, I don't believe it. I do not believe it. He would intentionally make her get up and run. She sat on that chair because she enjoyed it. Everywhere she'd bring that chair and she'd sit there because it was the perfect height for the TV. Something that was so innocent just manipulated to appear to be something so cruel.
Yeah, they never really emphasized that it could also be used as a regular chair.
Yes.
Right. It was always that it was a potty chair that which would be it'd be kind of weird if you forced someone to sit on that.
Yeah. I've been a registered nurse for 11 years, and I've done wound care, oncology patients who have had every type of cancer you can imagine. If my poor sister was forced to sit on a potty as that witness, as Robin testified, for hours out of the day, they would have found skin breakdown on her bottom on that autopsy, and it was never identified. There were no signs of skin breakdown.
Yeah.
It sounds strange to say someone
slept on a potty. How can you sleep on a potty without falling over?
I get you're trying to make a story here, but to use this and some of the other things we'll mention later, it just feels so much of a lie and a fabricated type of thing. But again, people believe it, right? But it's just strange to say that a 2-year-old child would even stay sitting on a potty for 23 hours out of the day. They're active. They want to get up. They want to move. They want to do things. They want to play.
Throughout my life living with my father, he never once, not one time, gave me a bath. Ever. He didn't give any of his female daughters baths. When he was married, it was up to his stepwives to do our hair and to give us baths. Or when he was not married, when he got a divorce and it was just he and I and in the house alone, he would leave the door cracked. He would run water in the tub, put the little bubbles, the rubber ducky, and he'd leave the door cracked. And he'd say, babe, if anything happens, yell. Never, ever would come in the bathroom. Now, I repeated this to my mother as a child, and it actually started confusion. She wanted him to be in the bathroom with me because she's like, this is she's 6-7 years. What if she drowns? She thought it would be best, but it's just not who he was. He would tell me, if something happens, yell, I'm right here, I'm going to be in the room next door. And he never potty trained children either. All the wives were the ones doing the potty training. It's always been like that.
My name is Brooke, and in 2017, I was involved in a major collision on an interstate in Ohio. It was a completely sunny day. There was seriously not a cloud in the sky. We had seen that there was traffic up ahead, like traffic cones, saying that 2 miles there's going to be road work. So things are starting to slow down. So preemptively, you're going to start getting into the left lane. We are getting over into the other lane, and it's a couple seconds. We're kind of just like at a standstill. All of a sudden, I just hear my husband say, "Oh crap." And I just hear these brakes that sounded like a freight engine. And immediately I was like, okay, something's happening. Boom, boom, boom. It got closer. I just took the blanket that I had and hid myself. I don't remember getting hit. I just remember hearing noises. I thought that my husband was dead. And then the next thing I heard was my husband saying, "Brooke, you have to get out of the car." I look up and there is this huge semi truck just like right behind our car. And I'm like, that just hit us.
I had 4 million miles of safe driving in my 38 years. And if I don't stop and think of safety first, then I feel like I'm letting the public down, I'm letting myself down, my kids down, my grandbabies down. So safety is my number one goal. About a month ago, I was coming around Columbus, Ohio. I had 79,000 pounds in my trailer, and I had a gentleman that was trying to find a location for a job interview. He stopped dead right in the right travel lane in front of me. Well, I have a pet peeve about following too close. I don't care if you're in a car or a truck. You know, your following distance can save lives. And I was far enough behind him that I could stop, but at the same time, he saw the big grill of my truck in his rearview mirror and realized that he had stopped in front of a tractor and trailer. I literally slid because the weight in my trailer pushes you when you get to that extreme of pressure. So I pulled over, made sure this gentleman was okay, even though there was no accident. You know, it's kind of an education thing with me of saying, "Sir, you know, it takes me a long way to stop, and I hope you're okay." Whether you're walking, whether you're riding a bicycle, whether you're in a car, we can't maneuver as fast as all those people can. It's our road, it's our safety. Let's share the road together safely.
She's the one who watched Karen. So this is interesting. My dad obviously drove the 18-wheeler. How can a person abuse a child while they're driving the entire time? But to make it seem like he was the one who was available to abuse my sister, Robin makes it seem like she drove my father's truck, his 18-wheeler. And let me tell you guys, like, nothing is impossible, but that is highly, highly unlikely. We're not just talking about the truck. We're talking about the truck pulling a trailer. Keep that in mind. There are weigh stations. People have to stop at these weigh stations. Credentials had to be checked. The weight of the load had to be checked. We're going over different terrains, mountains and bridges. There's no way that she could have driven a truck. And my father shared this with me in his final moments. He said, to make it seem that I was abusing my daughter, you know, she tried to make it seem like she was driving my truck. And he said, "Bethany, you know me. I never let anyone drive my truck." I've been in the truck. I've been in all of my father's trucks. And if she was driving that truck, there's no way that she would be able to see towards the back to know what was going on. If my father was driving the truck, well, he wasn't abusing his daughter. Either way, like, it's stupid. It's a stupid testimony.
we were mentioning about the drive, the whole, almost 30 days, on a truck. And Bethany was mentioning, that, she went on this type of journey with her father too. They drive around the whole country.
I know what you're gonna say.
And they took a lot of photos, okay?
Yeah.
I've seen the photos with her when she was younger. Aphrodisia was there. She was an infant at the time, right? Barely 2 years old. Almost maybe even the same age as Karen might have been at the time when they went in,
she was
in
one.
2002,
she was
right?
One.
Was one. Similar situations, right? So she knows how the environment is on the truck. And, it's not even just her who's gone. Her cousins have gone. Alfred's nieces have gone. And they went to these places. They took photos and they had a good time. And that's something that, like as Bethany said, her father said that they did on this trip as well. They traveled, they took photos with all of them together, they took photos with maybe just Karen, and the reason why her father did that was so that he could send some of those photos to her mother, Katrina, and so that she could have some photos of Karen without all of the family, right? Because that's not her family, so to speak, not Katrina's family, only Karen's her family, so she might have wanted some photos, he's trying to do a nice thing, some photos of just Karen on her own, not with everybody. And this was important because the photos would show the well-being of a person, right? Photos are timestamps, like they're memory timestamps, right? That they're giving us an indication of what the situation was like or anything was like at that moment. And they had photos all the way up the whole trip. Now,
they were confiscated and never seen again.
There were 2 cameras on the truck. One was a camera, if you can imagine, where, put the film in back then. You had to get it developed, right? We're in 2002. And there was another camera on the truck.
There were 3 cameras on the truck.
Maybe even 3.
That was my father's.
Barbie one, too.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it counts. It was a Polaroid.
Yeah. And that, exactly. And the Polaroid. And the Polaroid is important because you don't have to wait for that film. That's right there, and that's instant. And Alfredicia says that she had that Polaroid camera on that truck and was taking photos, right? Robin says that there was absolutely no photo. There was absolutely no Polaroid camera on that truck. Why is that important? Because if there was, then we would need to, then there would have been proof to say that, well, where are the photos that were taking live during that time,
to show
right?
abuse.
To show that. So if the fact is that they did find probably a bunch of Polaroid photos, they got rid of them or deleted them or threw them away or put them away in evidence, wasn't ever proffered up because it would have showed Karen's state and well-being even up to the day before. So if you're making accusations about Karen being at a pool with a swollen head and people are seeing it, well, the photos should show indication of that. We have to get rid of those photos because that doesn't go with the narrative. Exactly, that correlates with the narrative that the prosecution has now made. So when asked at trial about the cameras, and it's very, look at how Patty Booth asks these questions. She's very specific on how she's asking them.
She's leading.
Was there a camera there? She wants to bring that point so note that there was never a Polaroid camera, so that way we can't even get into the conversation if the defense were to bring it up and object about the photos being proffered as evidence. He could have maybe said, Tinker, well, what about these photos? They said there was a Polaroid camera there.
It's clear the witnesses perjured their testimonies. What we're about to do in these final moments of the People versus Alfred Bourgeois is use their own testimonies against them, proving once and for all that there was no way Alfred Bourgeois could have abused his daughter without anyone noticing. Let's take a trip through time.
My father and his wife and the children weren't the only ones living in that house. Robin's uncle, her uncle Anthony, also lived at that home, and he had been living there for a year, and he watched the kids and the dogs as well. Well, when they pulled up to their LaPlace home on June 26th, Anthony was nowhere to be found, and the electricity was off. I don't know if he had taken the money my father had given him and not paid the bill. I'm not sure, but my dad was not happy about it because they came home to a hot house in the middle of the summer with no electricity. This was at 11 a.m. Robin's cousin was there waiting for them on the porch. So Robin asked her cousin if they can go to a utility place to see if they can get some assistance immediately turning the electricity on, in which her cousin agreed to bring her. So during this time, my father's alone with the girls. Now, why is this important? It's important because in Robin's testimony, she states that this day, the day before my sister's death, that my father left Jacaren in a hot 18-wheeler. Her testimony also states that right when arriving to the home, she and her cousin, who she hadn't seen in years, who was at the home waiting for her, immediately got in the car and went to a utilities place to try to get the electricity turned back on. The place was closed, they were out for lunch, and they had to wait an hour. This is important because if you were not home, how can you testify that a child was left in a hot truck if you were not there? You were with your cousin at this utility place, so that's a lie. Also, when she returned from the utility place, she stated that my father was changing locks. Her testimony also states that, Jacaren was in the truck or whatever. Now, I don't believe those girls were left in the truck, but hypothetically, if they were in the truck, would an air-conditioned 18-wheeler not be a better place for a toddler than a hot home that hasn't had electricity for we don't know how long? And her testimony also stated that when they returned, that all the adults stayed and talked until it was time to leave. So if those adults stayed and talked, this is the day before Jacaren died. If there was another adult present that interacted with my sister, how could he not see signs of abuse if supposedly, allegedly, she was being abused for 6 weeks and tortured? And this man saw no signs of abuse the day before, no swollen head, no signs of abuse. And if he did see signs of abuse, you're just going to go on like nothing happened? You're just going to, okay, cousin, it was nice seeing you. Bye, Jacaren. Sorry you've been abused, but there's nothing I could do. Have a wonderful day. Like, no sane adult is going to actually, it never happened. That's the truth. It never happened. He did not see signs of abuse, and he didn't mention it because there was none.
My name is Cheryl Gray Lassane. Alfred was my first boyfriend, and he would always bring the baby girl, Alfredecia. I love to see how he was interacting with her. When she would see him, her face would light up, and he would leave her with me sometimes to watch her while they were on the road together. It was something to see because you never hardly see men take time out to be with their children, especially black men. Take their children on the road and spend time with them like that. When I first heard it, I was like, that can't be true. I said, because I've seen actually how he was with his child, and I've never seen bruises on her or nothing wrong with her. I said, there's no way that they claim that he did what they claimed that he did. His thing was he didn't want to have her in jail and then his children would be without a mother. But in the long run, he actually sealed his own fate because she turned on him. I didn't believe the story that went down that he killed his own baby, because there's no way in the world I would believe that, because like I said, I seen them together.